folks. Good evening and welcome to Phantoms and Monsters Personal Reports, where I narrate some of the more recent and past cryptid and unexplained sightings and encounters that are submitted to Phantoms and Monsters. I will also detail current and past investigations occasionally, so thanks for joining me. Phantoms and Monsters radio channel is made possible by you clicking the subscribe button and by you sharing our programming. Super chat donations are appreciated, and the buy me a coffee link is also on the description. And thanks for your consideration. Now, I am going to make one note before I start. I was at the eye doctor today, and they put those damn drops in my eyes, so I am having a little issue, but I think I'll be okay. So let's see. The first account was submitted to me by Jorge Martin from Puerto Rico. He's also an affiliate with our team, but he does exclusive work. He's a journalist, a newspaper guy with in Puerto Rico, and he does a lot of the bizarre stories down there. So this was submitted by him, and so he sent it over to me. It states that after several UFO sightings and other odd activity, a huge ferret-like humanoid appears in the Duque barrio, Naguabo, Puerto Rico. This is not the first time a similar creature has been seen. So this was submitted to me a couple months ago, and the way it's written up is a few days ago, Mr. Miguel Matos, who lived in the El Duque sector of the municipality of Naguabo, Puerto Rico, which adjoins the El Yunque forest to the east. Now, El Yunque has had a history of a lot of UFO activity, a lot of bizarre activity as well. He told us that he had had several unusual experiences in that area and that he had to send us a note summarizing them. We had already received a note from him, which contains very interesting details, and we are posting it here. Miguel states, summary of events experienced by me, Miguel Matos, in the El Duque sector in the town of Naguabo, Puerto Rico. Now, first, August 2017, one night between 2:30 a.m. and 3 a.m., I saw an oblate, oval-shaped, unidentified flying object, about 4 inches long and 2 inches wide, illuminated with a bright green light. I woke up to go to the bathroom and noticed a reflection of the light on the bathroom window coming from the back of the residence outside. Upon reaching the room, I looked out the window and saw the aforementioned object hovering over the ground, about 4 foot high. I called my wife, and she saw also. The object flew over the entire lot, the house, and the structures, making some very fast, sharp turns and zigzags, as if examining everything, and then moved away at incredible speed towards the top of the mountain behind the residence. Then my wife and I had lost sight of it. So one night, another incident. One night in November 2017, I had an encounter with a creature somewhat similar to an ape, but with other very strange physical characteristics. The house in which we lived belonged to my wife's mother, and we lived in an apartment on the ground floor of it. On the land next to the house, there was a part covered with cement and another section with stones and gravel. In that section, my wife had a brave pit bull dog with her little house. She was very territorial and would not allow strangers in there. Now, one night, the dog began to scream and moan as if she was afraid of something, and that surprised us because she was very brave. I went out to see what was the matter, and was all right, as I did go so quickly, noticed a very strong acrid smell similar to that of sulfur, which irritated my throat. Still, I went ahead and checked, but didn't notice anything out of the ordinary, so I went back into the house. A few minutes later, it was felt that something or someone was walking on the stones next to the canopy. At that moment, I took my firearm and went back out to see what was happening. I again smelled the very strong odor, and then I noticed the presence of an apparently furry and dark creature about 75 foot away from me, which, not being able to see it up close, I thought may be an ape. Then I lost sight of it. Then, one night in December 2017, I don't remember the exact date, I met an incredible creature on the road. It was already between 9:30 p.m. and 10 p.m., and I was returning from visiting my father in the town near Naguabo. I was driving my car and being a few meters from the house, located in the Duque neighborhood in the town Naguabo, I suddenly saw that in the middle of the road, there was something similar to a large, dark brown dog. I stopped my car and I honked at it to make that dog move, but it didn't move. So I got out of the car and threw a rock near it to make it move. To my great surprise, what I thought was a big dog got up, stretched, and I could see what it really was. I could not believe what I was watching. There, standing in front of me, was a creature about 7 foot tall. It was standing on two legs like a person, but its legs were weird, kind of curved, and with three big claws on its feet. Its entire body was covered with short, dark brown hair. It had strong arms similar to a person's, with hands with only 4 clawed fingers. Its head was more or less like that of a human being, but the face somewhat resembled that of a ferret, with a slightly more pronounced snout, and it had short ears. Its eyes were totally black and slightly almond-shaped, not very large. And I think Vince has got the image of this thing up there. Seeing it shocked me, and I thought to draw my firearm, but something told me not to do so. That creature was very big, and if I missed the shot, it could attack me. We looked at each other for a few moments, and then it walked quietly, went into the bush, and I stopped seeing it. There I entered my vehicle and arrived at the house, where I told my partner what had happened. She told me, "Why didn't you shoot him?" And I said, "I couldn't do it. If I missed the shot, that big thing would attack me, and I would not have been able to face it." Now, that thing looked like a cross between a human being and an animal, and its behavior seemed intelligent to me. I suspect it may have been the same creature I had seen before, which I thought was an ape. Further on, in January 2018, strange flying lights on top of El Yunque Mountain. After the passage of Hurricane Maria through Puerto Rico in 2017, the entire area was without electric power. And on many occasions, we saw strange lights flying over the area. One night, I was traveling back to El Duque neighborhood of Naguabo and casually looked up at the top of El Yunque Mountain. I visualized a line of bright white lights coming down from the sky towards the top of El Yunque. Suddenly, that row of lights made 2 quick, jerky movements from the left to right and ascended rapidly at the top, and then a mist suddenly formed that blocked the visibility towards the top of the mountain. That fog did not seem normal to me. I believe it was something produced by whatever row of lights was to hide their presence up there. Now, again, in January 2018, strange behavior in animals. At the end of January 2018, a skinny horse with a rare stamp on its left leg arrived at the house. That horse did not approach the other horses that were there. But the strange thing, in my opinion, was that he didn't eat grass. However, he pretended to eat something on the cement floor where there was no grass. When you spoke to him, he looked at you as if he understood you. It was a very penetrating stare. After that, it went into the brush and disappeared from sight. So that's all that he remembered and then wrote to Jorge about it. But you know what? That El Yunque, I have written several articles and received several articles, some from Jorge, about this young cave rainforest and some of the weird stuff that shows up there. We have also had encounters with winged humanoids there as well, gargoyle-like beings. So I don't know what they're seeing, but a walking ferret, an upright ferret, is kind of bizarre. So Maria asked, "Is this the only report of a ferret-like creature that you have received?" That's a good question. I don't really recall anymore, so it might be. It might be. I have heard of entities that were smaller that kind of look like rats or something, or like a rodent or something. But the size of this and the description, and that was the sketch that Jorge made from the witness's description. So I don't know, but I don't think I have received any others beside that one. But I thought that one was quite interesting. Have dogmen been? This is from Jose Sanchez. Have dogmen been reported in PR in Puerto Rico? I don't know. I've gotten a lot of dogman upright canine sightings over the years, and I would think there have to be one somewhere, but I can't recall it. Now, I tell you, I am writing a book about cryptid canines. And if there's one in my notes, I will write it in there. Definitely write it in there. And I might pull it out and read it if I do come across it. So that's all I can tell you at this point. But I do have some strange sightings in Puerto Rico over the years. So let's go ahead and move on. A Wyoming man recalls his amazing Bigfoot abduction experience when he was a boy while camping near Big Sandy River. He later remembers the incident in detail after talking with his older brother. Now he states, "Let me preface this by saying that I didn't remember this incident until I was in my early 30s. It came back to me over a week in bits and pieces. I think it was triggered by my brother who came to live with us. After a few days of little snippets and memories popping into my head out of nowhere, I finally talked to him about it. He told me it was all too real, although he didn't know what happened to me until then. He put two and two together and shared his side of the story, which made me realize that I wasn't crazy or imagining things." Now, he states, "I grew up on a ranch near Wind River Mountains in Wyoming. We heated the house with wood, so every year after the crops were in, before we had to start irrigating, we would spend about 2 weeks in the mountains getting wood. We always went to the same place that we called Bear Trap on the Big Sandy River. It was fairly remote because it was long and difficult to drive into that place. The only other people I ever saw there besides family were sheep herders on horseback. I should also add that I love the outdoors, and we spend most of our weekends either in the desert or in the mountains. I love them both. But for the desert, because I'm much more comfortable there, I don't sleep well at all. In the mountains, I'm always on edge. For as long as I can remember, I've been able to go creek fishing without someone else. I haven't been able to go creek fishing without someone else nearby, preferably in sight. Now I know why. I think I was about 5 years old. My brother was 12. We'd been camping for about a week, and my mom and dad went down the mountain or something and left my brother and me up there. It sounds crazy nowadays. I remember standing there watching them drive off next to my brother who had a .22 rifle propped on his shoulder. After they left, I went to play at my favorite spot by the creek, which is out of sight from the camp, which is probably 200 yards away. I don't know what my brother was doing, but this is what I remember. I do recall being carried by something with long, thin fur under its arm, kind of like a football. There were at least 3 other beings alongside us, traveling upright and on all fours, intermittently, and screaming and yelling at the one who had me. It was like they were telling it to put me down and it was wrong to take me. They seemed to be in a panic. I don't remember smelling anything. It almost feels as like I was watching it happen to someone else. I don't recall any emotions like I was passive or a passive observer. It doesn't make sense because I know I had been terrified. I didn't like the loud, chaotic noises, though I don't know how far we went. But finally, we came to a place that was an overhang or cave. Now, the dirt in front of it had been swept clean. The ones running alongside us had reddish brown fur and long arms and seemed like they were teenager age and a little younger. They continued to squawk and yell and protest until a much larger one came into view. Then they all went silent and out of sight for some reason. I had the impression that she was the matriarch of the bunch. She grunted something at the one holding me, and I was put down on the ground, and it left too. I didn't feel like she was mean or meant to hurt me, but just very sad. I wonder if maybe she had lost her own child and snatched me out of grief. The older female looked at me kindly and had a soothing presence. Her fur was darker, almost black and thinner and wirier. I don't remember if she made any sounds or not, but I feel like she continually communicated to me that I was safe and shouldn't worry. She took me by the hand and led me to a bed-like thing made out of pine needles, grass, and soft bark, which was right at the inside edge of the cave or overhang. She indicated that I should sit there and was very gentle with me. She disappeared for a long time and came back with some water with plants in it and had me drink it and then gently laid me on the mat. The next thing I remember was waking up, first smelling a damp, mossy dirt smell, and then feeling the grass tickling my nose. I was very confused as to why I'd take a nap right there. I was about 20 foot away from where I had been playing by the creek. I walked into the camp and my brother grabbed me and hugged me and yelled at me for hiding from him. In retrospect, he was frantic. After I told my brother my side of the story, he told me that he had been looking for me for hours and that he had checked the area where I had been playing several times. He also told me that Grandpa and Dad were aware that a family of these beings lived around there, but they had never bothered us. He and my dad used to leave them salt and sugar on a log every year, and they took it every time. I was unable to talk to my dad and my grandpa about it after I remembered because they had both passed. When I was young, I never told my mom about it either. I did hear my grandpa telling my dad about hearing something come up the creek while he was fishing once, and that it wasn't a bear. But they stopped talking about it when they realized I was listening. So now that account came from Facts by How to Hunt, the guy by the name of Steve on his website. It was an email he received. But I thought it was so unique, I wanted to talk about it here. It was probably one of the better Bigfoot abduction incidents that I have ever read. I'd like to know what you folks thought about it, but it was pretty interesting. Okay, well, let's move on. I see my friend Dave's on here tonight. So, Dave, thanks for the super chat donations. Much appreciated. Now, this next account, the witness and his brother were recently driving near his home outside of Alamogordo, New Mexico. They noticed a large pterodactyl-like creature flying near them and were shocked by the sighting. Now, this was an account that was sent to me. And I talked with the witness, and there's going to be a follow-up, I think. There's something going on there. And he and his brother have every intention on finding out what's going on. For those who know anything about Alamogordo, it's near the White Sands Trinity site. And it's It's a lot of top secret installations there. I think there's some missile sites there as well. Most of the people who live in the area work for the government. So anyway, this is what he wrote to me. I have to be honest, I wasn't sure who to contact about this, but felt I had to report it to someone. On September 11th, 2022, my brother and I witnessed what can only be described as a pterodactyl-like bird flying north to south. We saw the creature from approximately 100 foot away and was about 50 feet off the ground. It appeared to be 6 to 8 foot long, grayish in color, with large, dark beak, approximately 1.5 feet long. Its wings were very long and tapered to a point. The tail was very strange, as it appeared to be maybe 2 to 3 foot long, straight and smooth, and a couple inches around. At the end of the tail, there was some type of roundish tip about the size of a baseball. I couldn't discern any feathers, and the animal appeared gray and smooth. Thank you for your time. I just had to report to somebody. So I contacted him, and he told me that he and his brother were driving in his neighborhood just outside the city of Alamogordo, and on the early evening of September 11th, 2022. And for those unfamiliar with the location, that's the Tularosa Basin in the Chihuahuan Desert there. Holloman Air Force Base is there. Now, Holloman Air Force Base, for those that know ufology, that is the location where Eisenhower supposedly met some alien beings in the 50s. It's also near the White Sands Missile Range and National Park as well. So flying near them was what the witness described as what he first thought was an oversized pelican. It was flying at an altitude of approximately 50 feet and close enough for him and his brother to distinguish detail. Now, the long beak was very pronounced and long. The entire body was about 8 foot long with membrane wings that were long and tapered to a point. The wingspan was at least 12 foot. The entire body was grayish in color. There was no hair, just smooth skin. And like I said previously, there was a long tail with thickness and length of a baseball bat and a bulb-sized formation on the end. It was flying north to south. It was deliberately and slowly flapping its wings while maintaining height and speed. Both witnesses were shocked at what they were observing and felt compelled to report the incident. I received the written report the same evening. The witness later stated that he had been outside grilling the night before. At the same time, he heard several loud screeches coming from a distance and above, but could not determine what it was. Now, he did tell me there is an area near his home that is somewhat swampy with old growth trees, and plans to investigate the location for evidence. So I haven't heard anything else. I don't know if he's going back there yet or not, but I am going to follow up with him. Texas and New Mexico, Southwest, they are known for these possible flyways or flyovers of these pterodactyl-like beings, pterosaurs. The late great J.C. Johnson used to talk about there being a flyway from Central America up to Mexico and through Texas and the Southwest of these pterosaur-like beings. I don't know if that's true or not, but I do know there are a lot of sightings, and of course. Jason McLean was on the show last Friday, and we talked about this a bit because he had an encounter as well while living near Dallas. And Ken Gerhardt and Nick Redfern wrote a book titled Big Bird several years ago about the phenomena as well. So, if you're interested in it, I would suggest you go get the book because it's very well done. Dave's talking about my beard again. Anyway, so if you have any questions about that after I'm done reading, we'll talk about that then. Now, here's an interesting one that was sent to me, or it was actually forwarded to me by another investigator, about a group of urban explorers in the outskirts of Angoulême, France, that come across an unexplained humanoid that has red skin and large glowing white eyes. What was it? I think that Vincent has some pictures of this thing as well. So in 2012, Duque Ricci and his friends were urban exploring in an abandoned building that housed a swimming pool on the outskirts of Angoulême, France. It was a night exploration, and flashlights were used to help them see around the disheveled building. All seems pretty routine until they shine their flashlights in a corner, one from the apparent shelving unit. That is when they observe movement and spot a strange figure. He seems to be sitting and moving his body, popping a leg and arm and head out to peer at them. The figure, although humanoid, does not appear to be human. It seems to have noticeable red skin and large glowing white eyes. No surprise, Ricci and his friends screamed in horror and immediately rushed outside, where they run into the woods away from whatever was in the building. There is a strange screeching sound that follows them out, but it is unclear if it's just the natural sound of the forest or something else, possibly the creature. Now, Ricci uploaded the video on his YouTube channel in 2012, which is titled "Strange Creature in an Abandoned Swimming Pool." In his description, he noted, "We still do not know what it was. It's pretty terrifying." And it was referred to me, and that's where I got the screen grabs off of this thing. Now, if you do go to the video, you can see it moving around. Now, in the years since, all the content on Ricci's channel has been removed except for that video. And it's unclear if he ever made a follow-up video. A friend of Ricci's responded to the video comments, attempting to clarify that the building was normally locked and hard to get into. It was not known to be a dwelling for homeless people. He stated that no one can enter inside because it was closed. We pass next to the swimming pool each day because it's on the way to the university restaurant. And we see that nobody lives inside. We really don't know what this thing was. Some commenters had actually noted that their eye glow might have been a reflection of the flashlight, though it seems unlikely since human eyes don't normally reflect light that way. As well, the eyes seem far too large and too far apart to be, and the glow is visible even when the flashlight is no longer being shined in the direction. So anyway, one of his associates stated something about it, or my associate, my friend Brian. Jamie Bryan. He was reminded of the Marvel Comics superhero Spider-Woman. And that figure appears lanky, possibly female, is blood red in color, like a skin suit, had long jet black hair barely visible, and its eyes seem to be shaped not unlike how the arachnids characters' eyes looked in the comics. So it's pretty bizarre. I mean, if you're looking at the picture in the video, it's pretty. I mean, in the screen cap, it's pretty bizarre. But I don't know what they ran across. But then again, with all these humanoids and stuff that people have been seeing and reporting to me in the past couple of years, and of course, in writing the book "Mean Humanoids," there's a lot of weird stuff that has been forthcoming. So I don't know exactly what this was. Now here's a sighting that I received from the Chicagoland area of a winged humanoid. And this is the most recent sighting that we have received for those who haven't kept up with this. An Itasca, Illinois resident details his encounter with a gargoyle-like winged humanoid in his neighborhood in August 2020. Now, the description is very similar to others we have received in the Chicagoland region. Now, the original email that he sent me goes as thus: I have an experience I would like to tell you about. I did not know this site existed, and I was telling my brothers about it a few weeks ago at my son's birthday party. And of course, they were laughing at me. I live in Itasca, Illinois, and 2 years ago in August 2020, I went out at about 9 p.m. at night and was putting something in my car. About 50 to 75 yards away, I saw something land in the street. It looked like it was crouching, and it looked the size of a coyote or maybe bigger, sitting in an upright position. It was too big to be an owl, but kind of looked like a bat owl looking creature, like a gargoyle with little horns on its head. I was focusing on it for about a minute and kept asking myself, what the hell is that? Now, in a sudden burst with its wings, it kind of hopped up and exploded out of the crouching stance with a thunderous stroke of its wings and disappeared into the trees. I yelped and stepped back a bit as I could not believe my eyes. It looked like a 5-foot black bat animal looking thing flying into the trees. Now, I have been reading about the other sightings in the area, and my sighting matches what others have seen. I got a good look at that creepy thing, but I do not believe that it observed me because I was watching it quietly. So I got a hold of the witness, and he stated that he was quite surprised when he noticed the creature. Again, he said it was crouched under a fairly bright street light and about 50 yards in front of him in the neighborhood, in his neighborhood, which is the vicinity of Bryn Mawr and Elm Street, Natasha. This location is approximately 2 miles west of O'Hare International. As he watched, it was apparent that it had bat-like wings, and the face was similar to a gargoyle's depiction with small horns on its head. The coloring was gray to black. There was no eye color recognized. Now, I am going to state this, and I don't know if Vince is bringing it up because I can't see the screen right now. But he did a sketch of one of these unseen ones of the winged beings that were described by the unseen ones, and they do look gargoyle-like with small horns on their heads. So maybe this is what he saw. Now, when it suddenly rose up from its crouched position, he states that it stood 5 to 6 foot in height and that the body was somewhat emaciated but defined. The arms were attached to the wide wings that spanned far from the body. It was definitely a humanoid form. He used the word explode to describe the sudden burst of energy when it took flight after just one flap of the powerful wings. The sound of the wings, the ascent burst like thunder and suddenly flew into the tree and disappeared, which is something we've been hearing from people, where these beings seem to have some ability to suddenly jettison themselves into flight. Some do it without flapping a wing, some also flap. They're both types. The witness is very articulate and seemingly forthright. He is still affected by this encounter 2 years later. He expressed how surprised he was when he found the interactive map detailing the Phantoms and Monsters Fortean research, extensive investigation of this phenomena. Now, I will say this. After the weekend that I talked to him, he called me. He had me call him back. This individual is very religious, and he knows his Bible. He's very well read. He said all weekend he felt guilty about telling me about this because he was afraid that this was some type of demon being, and that he was getting me in some type of trouble by telling me about this. But I explained to him that we had heard all kinds of different things as far as these sightings go. And, I'm not going to tell him what he thinks it is, or, I told him I take it under advisement and I go from there. So I just wanted to put that caveat in there. So that's all. That's all what we got for the night. Now, if you all have questions, please put them into the chat, and I will try to answer them. Jose Sanchez asks, "How can Mothman move dimensionally if it's a physical creature?" Well, this has been the big question. Or can flesh and blood beings, corporal beings, can they move between dimensions? Or can they move into alternate realities? I think the latter, they definitely can. I think humans can. I think humans have walked through portals into alternate realities. But I also think that corporal beings can move within dimensions if they know what they're doing. Do they have to manipulate their mass somehow to do that? Does it require some type of vibration to match moving in and out of other dimensions? I don't know. This is a question that we've had for a lot of people, something we've thought about. But it is an interesting question. I thank you for asking it. Brian Keith Linville, what do you know about feral humans? I've heard them mentioned recently with little explanation of what they actually are. Well, when you're talking about feral humans, most of the instances where we're talking about them are those that live in very, very rural and out of the way places, like up in the mountains and such. I've had a lot of different interpretations of this, especially in Appalachia. Now, I'm not saying this is all an Appalachian phenomenon, but it does happen. Some people associate it with Bigfoot and other creatures. I don't believe that. I think, I don't want to say these are inbred human beings, but they're away from society. Their characteristics are not on par of what we are, basically, for a lot of reasons. But they pick up aspects, and their daily life is much different. They do act like animals, basically. That's how they survive. They've got to find ways to eat. They got to find ways of staying safe. And that's what people are known as feral, just like a feral cat would have to do the same thing. So, that's what we consider feral. Jose asked, so that would imply that Mothman can actually know where these portals are located. Well, I assume so. If he didn't, I don't know how he would find them, or they would find them. I had a big discussion on Dave Scott's show the other night on Spaced Out Radio, where we talked about portals. It was a fairly long discussion, and I do. He was talking about an incident where he recently may have been very close to a portal. Sure, I know some people don't believe in portals. I get that. I have been a party to them, though, in paranormal investigations with spirits and such, and also with some cryptid investigations. There are some researchers who swear that they have come across this. People have talked about the missing 411 cases where there could be very, very well could be portals involved with that. What do you think the brimstone smell would be? Portals opening or closing? I don't know. I know that brimstone odor does show up a lot. I don't know if it's one way or the other, or it's both ways, or what. Even David Eckhart had talked about that at some point, that he occasionally would smell that acrid smell. Or maybe it's just the entity himself. I don't know. That's just something else, another bit of evidence to use. We had the first sighting of the winged humanoids that we had at O'Hare was outside of the airport in Rosemont at an area where a lot of cab drivers or Lyft drivers would stay before they get a call from somebody at the terminal where they could drive in and pick them up. And there was a sighting of one of these things. And it was in October 2019, if you go back and check the chronological order. But anyway, one of the aspects of this sighting was that after this thing was seen, this guy went out of his cab, went up to the area, and he had a very strong ammonia smell. And we have heard that before. Just like, smells and odors are a big part of the paranormal. Josh Cutchin wrote a whole book about it. It's just like when I do remote viewing. A lot of times when I'm entering into certain phases of the remote view to where I'm trying to get information on the actual subject or the target, I get a cinnamon smell. It's happened to me many times. So, you might want to read Josh's book. Somebody put it up, The Brimstone Deceit. It's an excellent book. It's one of his early books. And it does go into an aspect of the paranormal a lot of people don't really think about. But odor is a real big part of it. Anybody else got any questions? Jose, maybe its eyes shine due to the bioluminosity similar to some sea creatures. That's very possible. I don't know, but that's very possible. Vincent wants to know, do you think the hurricane will displace cryptids? Well, it did the last time when Andrew came through down in South Florida. And it's interesting. There were some research labs and pet stores in that homestead area where they were keeping monkeys and stuff. And a lot of those got loose. A lot of other animals got loose. And every once in a while, somebody sees them in the Everglades and such. Of course, there are already enough people taking pet pythons and such and letting them loose out there. And, these creatures are basically changing the ecology of the Everglades. I mean, when you got pythons big enough to swallow alligators, I mean, you're definitely changing the ecology of the area. But will it displace cryptids? It may very well do that. But I think I think that they're probably so used to it that they find a way of protecting themselves. Are skunk apes just a collection of feral monkeys? I don't know. The skunk apes have been in the Mayaca area and other areas for a long time. I don't necessarily think they're some type of evolved monkey. I do think they're an indigenous species, though. I really do. Because you see a lot of family groups. And for the most part, they're very much different than most Bigfoot or Sasquatch that are seen in other areas. So I don't think they're necessarily feral monkeys. I just think that they're a species of hominid that's been around for quite a while. Okay. Well, folks, I want to thank you for coming on tonight and listening to me and offering your questions. Now, if you do have an unexplained encounter or sighting, contact me through the Phantoms and Monsters blog site, or you can write me at Lon Strickler at phantomsmonsters.com. And if you made a donation, it's truly appreciated. Your support's what makes all this possible. Please like, subscribe, and share. And please feel free to comment. We love the comments. And also, if you think that your sighting or report should be included on this personal reports narrated shows, let me know. See what I can do. Now, look, this Friday night at 9 p.m., 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, we're going to present Carrie and Greg, who are a married couple living in Summit County, Ohio, who have been dealing with a 12-year saga, which is namely there are monsters in their yard. Cryptid canines have been a part of their everyday life. So join us for this intriguing look into the evolution of their ordeal, what they have experienced and what they have learned from it. This is an investigation we started back in February. And I think it's time that they had come forward. They agreed to do so. And I think you're going to enjoy it and maybe learn a few things. So until then, stay healthy and have a safe, enjoyable week. Good night.